Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my little tier list of what I think what GTA Online DLC should be in what category, going from legendary all the way to uninstall. And yes, at uninstall, I thought it sounded funny, so we're rolling with it. Yeah, without further ado, let's dive into it. One quick note though is that I had to split this up in two separate lists, but I'll show each list at the end of the video so you can see, what exactly ended up where in one thing. This website is a little bit broken. I don't know. It's whatever. Anyways, let's start off with Beets. Beets I thought was a decent DLC. It was the first GTA Online DLC, and I feel like for the very first DLC, they, obviously need to give a little bit more content for people to play around with. And especially after all those issues, people were just happy to have the game in a stable state so they could actually play it. I think there was a DLC enough already. Now, the next one is the Valentine's Massacre. Personally, I think this was like a good DLC, mainly because of the vibe of the game and really just like what kind of weapons they added. The Roosevelt was a really cool vehicle. I thought it was something that was particularly fun to drive. It had a very cool vibe to it, and especially also the obviously the quote-unquote Tommy gun was also a very cool addition to the game. Then the business update, I thought that was a good DLC as well. The main reason for that is because it added the Turismo R, which till this day is one of my favorite vehicles, and also the Special Carbine, which essentially changed the matter right away. It was immediately recognized as a very solid assault rifle, and until this day it is one of the better ones out there. Moving on to High Life, I thought that High Life was also a great DLC. It added the Centorno, the Massacro, and also the Hundley S, and also combining that with the fact that we were finally able to own a second property, which also meant that we could have 10 more garage spaces and just a whole host of brand new contact missions as well, made this, in my opinion, a great DLC. It added new content, it gave you more storage, it gave 3 fantastic new vehicles, and also a bike which we're gonna gloss over. The bullpup rifle was also a very cool addition to it as well, so I'm definitely going to rank that as a great DLC. Moving on to I'm Not a Hipster. Now, I'm Not a Hipster is definitely one of the more funny kind of DLCs that were added back in the day. You got the addition of the Panto, you also had the Vintage Pistol, the Pigali, the Rhapsody, the Warner, the Glendale, and also the Dubster 6x6, and also 12 new jobs and a host of other adjustments in game tuning and all that sort of things. I personally thought that it was definitely a great DLC. Reason for that is because the Dubster 6x6 was one of the first things that Rockstar added to actually give more rewards towards the people that are rank 100. Alongside of that as well, you also had gold paint that was added to the game, so you can have that as well if it's rank 100. Up next is the Independence Day, which was the very first one, and added the Liberator, and also the musket and the firework launcher, and also the Southern. It was a relatively small update, but it had some good things to it. So I thought it was I wouldn't want to say good or decent. I think I'm gonna say a decent update. The monster truck or the Liberator, is a very cool vehicle. But I don't think it was necessarily like a big portion DLC that really was going to carry us over to the next one, which was the Flight School update. Now, the Flight School update, if you guys remember, that was a bit of a controversial kind of update back in the day, because people were like, hey, what is this? Who cares about planes and yada, yada, yada. And then Smuggler's Run came around. But I personally thought it was good. I thought it was an interesting DLC. We had some, interesting things to do. The Croquette Classic was added as well, which is a very interesting vehicle to drive till this day, I must admit. The sound of it as well is also very nice. I definitely enjoy driving it. It also added some new races, and also the Flight School itself, which I thought was just a really nice change of pace. It was a relatively small amount of content, but you were able to chase after some gold medals, and you were getting rewarded for that in cash as well. So definitely something that I thought was a cool addition to the game. Even though it was small, it was still pretty great. Next up is the Last Team Standing update, which added the bulletproof helmet so I can get uninstalled. Fuck that shit, get it out of here. Alongside that, there was also the marksman rifle, which was also the start of a lot of issues of the game. And basically, the Last Team Standing update was the beginning of the end in terms of balance in GTA Online. Like, the marksman rifle was just something that could easily be spammed, and you had the combination of the bulletproof helmet, which gives you headshot protection in the game, which is a one-shot, one-kill to the head. I wasn't a fan of it. I was very much opposed of it, and I still am after all these years. uninstall this from the game, it will definitely be a step in the right direction, especially because if bulletproof helmets never would have been added, I don't think we would have had all this other, head protective gear as well. Festive surprise, well, I mean, obviously, that's going in the great category. It only happens a few days a year, but when it does happen and the snow does drop, it just changes the game completely. I mean, some might argue in a bad way, but personally, I want to say in a great way. It's a little fun to have, it's always something to look forward to during, at the end of the year. People are always excited. You can do all kinds of different things. Like, the game just plays very different. So, yeah, definitely always a great addition to see back within the game. Now, of course, the big one, Heist. I mean, obviously, you gotta put it in Legendary. Like, Heist completely changed the game in terms of making money, in terms of, like, how Rockstar could make, like, really cool stuff. I mean, till this day, I'm kind of curious what you guys think. Like, do you prefer Heist or do you prefer Doomsday Heist? I mean, obviously, we'll be touching on that later, but I really feel that Heist really showed that Rockstar can make some really proper good DLCs. And after that, obviously, we had 2 more DLCs and then they moved on to next gen. But it was really like after such a long time waiting, because they delayed and delayed and delayed this stuff. But in the end, I really feel it was worth the wait. And we got some really, really good stuff from it. Even alongside of that, we got a massive amount of vehicles that you all unlock by playing all the Heist. And I remember, like, there's so many memories on that. I mean, we had, of course, for those who have been around the channel, we had Josh walking into the rollerblades while we were trying to go for the criminal mastermind. That's something that I'll never forget. Then we also had, I think me and my team of Bunny, Josh, and Shady, I think in the first or second week we were able to do the criminal mastermind. It was such a fun and cool challenge. I just remember, obviously being super nervous and, trying to figure out what the best ways are to complete the heist. And over the years, the amount of strategies people have gotten with those heists to complete them better, to complete them faster. It's just like, it was a fantastic addition to the game. And, hopefully in a future GTA Online, like in the GTA 6 or whatever, I really hope that they're going to have more emphasis, even in Red Dead Online. Like, having stuff like this, having great co-op gameplay like this, whether you're, a veteran player or you're a new player, it's just always a fun thing to do. Like, heists are always fun. Like, some might say they're glorified contact missions, but I'd argue against that. This is completely different, and especially, Doomsday Heist, which once again, we'll touch on later. Then, Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1. Now, this might also be the demise of GTA Online in terms of how much they're trying to push the envelope in terms of, how much they can make the monies. But I remember that whenever I had my 10 million from the Criminal Mastermind, I wasn't too worried about the next DLC because I had plenty of cash and I didn't spend it on the Kraken. Right, Josh? Ill-Gotten Gains Part 1 and 2 did add some cool vehicles like the Osiris and Sterling GT, and also the Croquette Blackfin, and just the T20, of course, as well. But overall, I think it's one of the more old school DLCs. Here's a bunch of cars, here's some weapons, and that sort of thing. But they didn't really do anything, massively. I mean, obviously, I love my Osiris, I love the T20, but after Heist, it was really not something like, wow. Something that was a big wow, though, was the free roam update. The free roam update was the turning point, in my opinion, of GTA Online, and if I have to be honest, it is my favorite update. And I might be wondering, why is it your favorite update? So what's wrong with you? The reason for that is because prior to this update, I've always felt that GTA Online's free mode felt very dead and very dull. With the update of this one, you're just cruising down Los Santos and suddenly you get notification. Hey, there's a free mode event going on. Why not participate? Pop the biggest wheelie, do the biggest stoppie. Things like that just out of nowhere changes the game into something completely different and fun. The same thing with that, of course, it was the stepping stone to what GTA Online free roam is going to be, with all the businesses and now the business battles, and obviously you still had the crates back then, but it really just showed that they could really make something of free roam. And I personally think because of that reason, the free roam update is my favorite update, because it fundamentally changed how GTA Online free roam worked. Some might argue in a positive way, some might argue in a not so positive way, but I personally feel that as someone who really enjoys having more, gameplay, I really think that they really nailed it with that update. Now after the free mode event, it was time to go low with some low riders. Now I thought this was a great update. It really was a great update. The reason for that is because it was bringing something to the fans that they want for a long time. For the longest time, people were screaming for this, like, we want low riders, let us have some low riders, this and that. And then it finally came, and alongside it there was also some new missions from Lamar, which really utilizes those new lowriders as well. It was a fun old school GTA update, which really went back to the roots in San Andreas, with all those lowriders and those modifications. And the amount of customization you could do in the cars as well was simply fantastic. And the same thing goes for Lowriders Part 2, as we're just gonna call it real quick just to make it easy for myself. It was also great, like it added upon that, but I didn't think it was as strong as the first update, mainly because there was a lot less content in there, and it was more so, here's a bunch of new cars, please enjoy. So I'll definitely be ranking that one in the good section. Up next we got Executive and Other Criminals, which I thought was decent. The main reason I thought it was decent because, the yacht is essentially a gigantic waste of time. I've had a good couple of hours with it in terms of fun. It has its uses. Back then when the free mode updates were still, rotating heavily, it was very useful to have a yacht and spawn on there and then go to your helicopter and go to the next thing that you wanted to do. But that quickly turned into a $9 million regret. But the heavy revolver that was added though is still one of my favorite guns, mainly because of how satisfying it is to fire. But then aside from that was a host of vehicles which had all kinds of different variations to it, which were basically the same car but then slightly different. You had the LWB with then the LWB armored and that was slightly different than this, and that was slightly different than that. It was a bit clusterfucky in terms of vehicles, that is one thing that I have to admit. But it was also the start of the VIP missions and just being able to launch your own missions while you're in free roam and not have to start from your menu. I mean, those missions, sightseer, those kind of missions, they're pretty fun. They earn pretty well as well. And let's be honest as well, piracy prevention, there's been plenty of good stories about that one, I'm sure. Many intense matches were had, but it didn't really grab me in terms of making this DLC to throw it in the good category. I think it was a decent update. It also was a starting point. It also was a starting point of the other things that were going to be added later down the line, like CEO and Biker. But I really feel it's just it was a decent update, mainly because it just did some more quality of life things over some actual gameplay. Next up we got Finance and Felony, and I'm gonna have to put that one in a decent one as well, mainly because I'm not really a huge fan of crates. I've always been a bit bored of them, I suppose. They're not really extremely fun to do. I feel that the gameplay for them could have been a lot more interesting. Obviously, there are great money, especially when it's double cash, but I just don't really think that we're too fun in terms of a gameplay perspective. But it was just more like a huge grind to fill up the entire thing. And that was kind of it, really. Though admittedly, we do have to say that the Return to the Tug was pretty cool, not gonna lie. Up next we got Cunning Stunts. Now obviously there's no better place to put it than Legendary, because let's be honest, Cunning Stunts, it was a starting point of a whole host of different things, especially in terms of racing for the game. It was a big racing update. It was the introduction of downforce as well. I mean, who doesn't remember the pre-patch RE7B? Oh boy, that thing was glued to the road and there was nothing that could stop it. It was again a turning point for the game in terms of racing. There was the introduction of downforce, which had, obviously later down the line at the cars like the Wagner and the RE7B, etc, etc, etc. Like it really was an interesting change of pace in terms of what you could expect in terms of racing. It really, till this day, is one of the more popular things that you can possibly do. I mean, trying to join a race in GTA Online and tell me if you find one that isn't a stunt race. It is simply impossible these days. You might get lucky, but it's very rare these days, which my personal opinion, obviously, I prefer to play road races, but as I start playing them more and more and trying to figure it out, because there's a different kind of skill to them, especially with all the tubes and the jumps and stuff, and especially those cheeky little shortcuts that people started to figure out. Cunning Stunts was a fantastic update, and till this day, even though it was released in 2016, all those races are still a lot of fun to play. Well, some of them. Also, quick shout out to the trophy truck, one of the most fun off-road vehicles to drive in the game. Then moving on to bikers. Now, I have a soft spot for chopper bikes and stuff like that, so I'm gonna have to put it in the great category. It added one of my favorite bikes from GTA 4, the Zombie Chopper. I'm sorry, but it was great. It really was great. Now, it was also the start of what was the passive income inside of GTA Online. The first one, the first business was obviously the crates. After that, we had our very first taste of what was going to happen later down the line in terms of passive income in GTA Online. Bikers was, in terms of that, a great money-making thing for sure. I mean, I started out in Los Santos, spending nearly 200 million on getting that one prize position inside of Los Santos, trying to get my Coke business up and running. But in all honesty, Bikers was a really solid update. Like, it made good money, and the vehicles that were added to it was just like, I mean, obviously they're mostly bikes, but still, it was a really solid update, especially for those people out there who were screaming for biker DLC all the time, I mean, I'm not naming any names, but, they ended up getting what they wanted, which was pretty cool indeed. I mean, it added also the biker contracts and also the businesses. So there was a lot of stuff added to the game. And like I said before, they added the Zombie Chopper. So how could I complain? Up next, we got import and export. Now, we're gonna have to put this into the legendary category because it's quite literally the most old school update added to GTA Online ever. It gave some really strong vibes back from the old days in GTA 3 all the way to GTA 4. It just is what GTA has always been, stealing cars, then bring them to your garage and selling them for a profit. It's the GTA Online DLC, and I definitely feel that it was a very great addition to the game. Alongside of that, we had our very first weaponized kind of vehicles, like the Ruiner 2000 or the Rocket Voltec. As much as I don't enjoy pressing L3 all the time, the amount of fun you could have with the Rocket Voltec was just nothing short of amazing. I mean, obviously, it was the start of a lot of rocket-powered vehicles as well, but the Ruiner 2000 especially was such a unique kind of vehicle. Like, being able to use a parachute from a vehicle, I mean, that was unheard of back then. And especially nowadays, I mean, with all the craziness we have going on, it's actually like, a little dot inside of the greater scheme of things. But back then, a very cool addition to the game, and very much welcomed from from a fun factor perspective for sure. Then moving on to the Cunning Stunts or Stunting Cunts or however you want to pronounce it, special vehicle circuit. This was added right after the import and export DLC, utilizing the brand new special vehicles inside of stunt races. Now, there were some very cool ones in there, but I kind of have to put this in the decent. It was okay. It was decent enough. Like, we had some cool races in there. And when I say cool races, I actually only mean the ones for the Ruiner 2000. The main reason for that is because the ones in the Rocket Voltec literally just, made you sit with your controller and just basically do this all the time. That's how you would play the race. That's it. That's all you did. Just press that boost button as much as you can, so as soon as you get the boost, you can get another one going. I really, till this day, I can't stand playing Rocket Voltec races. Up next, gun running. Now, gun running has one thing to it, and one thing only, and that is the fact that it has a bunker, which makes you a lot of money. But from a content perspective, uninstall this shit, alright? It was really like the turning point of the game, like, in terms of weaponized vehicles and how much crap was added in terms of like stuff you could destroy. It was a griever's paradise, and just like in terms of gameplay value, there just wasn't that much added to it at all. Like, it just was like, okay, you could do supply missions all the time, but that was kind of it. Like, I don't really think it was a great DLC. Sure, there was a lot of cool vehicles added to the game, but like, I just really think that this just really overshadowed it with how how much lack of gameplay there really was added to the game. Like, they didn't really add anything. They just added a bunker, and like, okay, here you go. You can now make like, you know, a million in like 12 hours by just doing nothing. Honestly, in my personal opinion, if they would get rid of all the passive businesses tomorrow, I'd be a happy man. Because I'd much rather just play the game. I don't want to set my character inside of my apartment making money. That's just my honest opinion, really. Next DLC after that. I mean, come on, Smuggler's Run. Like, I was actually celebrating the fact that whenever they finally added Smuggler's Run, it's like, oh man, we can start, you know, actually doing something active again. Like, I mean, it was reminiscing back to doing crates, but it was by far a lot better than having to sit in your apartment waiting for the game to generate money for you. But unfortunately, Smuggler's Run, I mean, everyone remembers those swords missions. I literally can't play them. I just no. And I just realized I threw Arena War in there, and I did the wrong one. Hold up. There you go. It's time for the redemption phase, of course, in the Doomsday Heist. I think that I speak for a lot of people when I say that after all those DLCs in 2017, like Gun Running and especially Smuggler's Run, which I think by far is many people's most hated DLC, you really have to say that the Doomsday Heist came as a fucking bombshell. No one expected to see more heists being added to the game. Everyone was always screaming for it, but when they inevitably did do it, my god, was it great. Like, I remember coming out, playing the crap out of it, and just really, there was so much to those heists. And those heists were just like, they were completely different than the first one. They were much more complex. They required a lot more teamwork. They were a lot more challenging as well. I personally feel that, I mean, I'm still kind of, you know, thinking which one I like the most, but I think I'm more leaning towards the Doomsday Heist because there's so much more variety to it. There's so much cool stuff to it as well. I mean, obviously the vehicles that they did add was like the Deluxo and like, you know, the Kanjali and you know, more armored stuff, but just from a gameplay perspective and, you know, how cool those missions are inside of the Doomsday Heist, like, they're really, really great. In other uninstall news, we have this one, the Southern San Andreas Super Sports Series. It was literally the worst title you could ever have in terms of wanting to upload YouTube videos on it. But aside from that, it was the start of the advanced handling flags, which is... Why? Why did they ever add those? It ruined so many great cars. The Entity XXR got completely ruined by it. I was like, oh my god, there's a new entity. It's like, why is this thing driving so weird? And then it turned out there were advanced handling flags to it, and the entire car got ruined. I was in tears. They were like almost 5 years after release, we get a new entity. The thing gets ruined because of some stupid line in the code. I'm shaking and crying right now. But overall, like, I mean, the only redeemable thing, in my opinion, that was really added to the Super Spoilers, that update, really was the target races. They were cool, but I don't know, like, the hot ring races, I don't know, man. Advanced handling flags just completely shattered this and the rest of the DLCs that came after that. Speaking of DLCs that came after that, is the After Hours DLC. Now, I'm gonna have to put this one on good. I call it great if there actually was more gameplay added to it, but the main thing was, of course, the nightclubs that were added. The nightclubs were very cool. Like, they're a really cool piece of content. You know, obviously there's a lot of things you can do inside of the club. You can decide to spend, you know, thousands upon thousands of dollars to try to get a Kiflam t-shirt, among other things. But aside from that, it really is something that was a really cool addition to the game, especially with all those DJs that were added too. You know, you basically got, you know, 4 sets of DJs inside of your nightclub and all the good stuff. But I just really hope that, you know, the way they handled it with in terms of gameplay content, with a terabyte being added way later, and especially all those missions, like every single week you had a different mission and a different DJ. It was another passive business, and really, it wasn't. It could have done. It could have been miles and miles better, in my opinion. And then the last one for now, until we get, obviously a new DLC at some point, whenever that's gonna happen, is Arena War. Now, I'm gonna have to put this one on great. And you might be thinking, like, what do you mean great? Like, there was just a bunch of adversary modes. But the main reason I want to put it in great is because the DLC was something that we never seen before. The fun amount of vehicles that they added to the game was nothing short of insane. Like, the amount of customization you can do to it, like the vast amount of fun you can have with those unique vehicles that were added. Sure, the game modes that it did add, they could have been fleshed out a little bit more. There were adversary modes that were, again, great concepts, but, flawed execution. And I really hope that in future DLCs or in maybe even GTA 6 Online, they take adversary modes a little bit more serious, if that makes sense, right? Because there's a lot of very unique and cool things you can do with these vehicles, but they're never really will get utilized apart from, messing around with them in free roam. As much fun as that is, really. I mean, the recently added Simeon missions where you're able to use the Sasquatch, that is a lot of fun. Like, having had missions with that where you're able to use your own custom Sasquatch to do missions like that, sign me up. That's a lot of fun to do. But anyway, that was it for this one. Thank you also very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments down below. And maybe even share your own tier list as well. I mean, even though there's, 28 DLCs or something. If you like typing, then, feel free to do it. But do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Feel free to let me know in those comments down below. But with all that said, and with all that done, thank you also very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. And I'll see you all later.